my name is Nicole. I'm the Assistant Director at Littleton Elder and Human Services. I'm also a member of the Littleton Coalition Against Addiction. And tonight we are here with Ron Lotti, who owns Bridge Fitness in Pepperell, Mass. He also wrote a book called Manufactured Energy, where he talks about his struggles with mental health, as well as family dynamics with substance abuse. And we're so pleased to have him here tonight. So we're going to just have a short lecture from him about his book, about what he does, about his mental health journey. We are thrilled to have Ron. He is so inspirational, so motivational. His story is really special, and it's really inspiring to hear him speak and to see where he came from and where he is now and how he got there. It's really important, and it's part of our mission with the Coalition Against Addiction to stop the stigma against substance abuse and mental health concerns. So we are just so thrilled to have him, and I'm going to turn it over to him right now. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And for everybody that's on the call, just know that, we are recording this. So if you don't want your picture on the recording, you probably want to shut your camera off. I'll be the only one, I guess, on the camera if needed, but if not, just make sure you know you're comfortable with the recording. I appreciate you, Nicole, just for the work that you do, but also coming in to learn more about what we offer. And your kindness towards me, honestly, means a lot to me as well. So thank you very much. And thank you for the introduction. I'll give a little bit more about myself and my background, and talk about the book and everything else too. But let me start off just by saying, I'm not a professional in any of the information I'm about to talk about. So I would love or I would really like it if anybody who is struggling with addiction, mental health, specifically things I'm going to talk about are depression, anxiety, PTSD. If you need help in any of those areas, please make sure you seek out professionals. What I'll share today is simply that. It's my story. Some of the things that I've gone through, what's in the book, a little bit about our gym and the other programs we offer, and things that I've done to hopefully try to help myself begin my own journey path in my own path to recovery from my own mental health struggles that I've faced over the years. So with that being said, about a little bit about myself, both professionally and personally, I'll start with the personal side. So I'm 40 years old, I live up in New Hampshire. I have a 17-year-old daughter who is absolutely amazing, and she is a senior in high school. I live with my wife as well. We've been together we're coming up on our 19th anniversary. And my hope, though, is very soon to leave this cold and move down south, because I think it was 1 degree out yesterday with some sleet and some snow. And I think I'm done with that, if I'm being honest with everybody. I'm not a big fan of shoveling or snow blowing. I don't like to ski or ice skate or any of the outdoor things. So I think it's about time. And ironically, my daughter is looking at schools down south anyways. So on the professional side of things, I pretty much did every job you could possibly think of up until a couple years into my daughter after she was born, just to try to figure out something. And then when she was born, I really wanted to find a career that I could make sure I provide for her. And I found my way into the world of finance. I worked at Fidelity Investments for a long time. I'm a financial advisor. I teach financial planning at Riviera University. I also, as I mentioned, I'm also a financial planner. I have multiple clients that I work with to help them and their families. And then I opened a gym, which Nicole mentioned. It's Bridge Fitness and Nutrition, which is located in Pepperell, Massachusetts. We run a variety of different classes, but our main focus, we say it all the time, is to hopefully help create better humans. And what we mean by that is keep people active, help them focus on nutrition and health, and really just become the best versions of themselves as they can be. And then finally, as Nicole mentioned, I wrote a book. It's called Manufactured Energy. The book, you can find Manufactured Energy it's on Amazon. Feel free to check that out. And then our website for the gym is bridgefitpepperell.com. So feel free to check that out as well too. So I guess with that, I'll jump in specifically. I'll talk about my book, Manufactured Energy. I think that's what brought me here today, amongst many other things. But I'll tell you in full honesty, the book started off just as a way of me starting to cope with a lot of the trauma that I faced as a kid. I've been in counseling since about the age of 3 or 4 years old. When I was young, unfortunately, my parents split up when I was very young, and they went separate ways, trying to work it out for many, many years. And I witnessed some epic battles, so to speak, when I was a little kid. But one of the worst that I faced was when I was very young, 3 or 4 years old. My mother had started seeing somebody new. She unfortunately struggled with drug and addiction, and so did every partner that she seemed to find along the way. And when I was very young, one time they had a major battle, and the gentleman that she was with at the time, unfortunately, tried to kill all of us. He ended up tying my mother up in the house. He beat myself as well as my sister, and he told us that we were all going to die, lit the house on fire, and left. And thankfully, my mother was able to get herself untied. I was able to bring my sister outside of the home, and then my mother got out as well. But watching the house burn down, I won't ever forget that. I still get chills talking about it. I was very, very young, but I can remember the man's face looking at me with a match in his hand, and then lighting the couch on fire, just whispering to me, "We're all going to die." And that's something that's haunted me for many, many years. So that's where the trauma began. And that's when counseling began as well. And, at 3, 4 years old, I'm now 40 years old, and I still see a psychologist and a counselor to help get through some of this stuff. I'll tell you, any of you that are on this call right now, if you were hoping to dial in or log into the Zoom and see somebody that is a quote unquote motivational speaker give you the key and just say, "Hey, do this one thing," and every traumatic event or every bit of depression that you've ever felt is going to be gone. Like so many motivational speakers I've seen, that's not what you're going to get here today. I find myself struggling with it every single day. It's something that I face every day. Depression is a very real thing that I face every single day. Anxiety is something I feel constantly throughout the day. And there are moments that trigger events that I witnessed as a kid, maybe not every single day anymore, but certainly weekly and definitely monthly. And we just are in the middle of right now holiday season, which tends to bring out all of that all at the same time for me. So I'm not sure if any of you or if your loved ones deal with the same thing, but just know that just like physical health, mental health takes a lot of work. You can follow the best nutrition plan, but if you're not working out, you might not see physical results you're looking for. You could follow the best weightlifting plan, but if you're not eating right, you're going to struggle to see the results you're looking for. But none of it matters as much to me, I believe, as your mental health, and you have to put in that same amount of work. And that's what the book is about. It's called Manufactured Energy. It's something I've been saying. It's a quote that I've used for many, many years, because my wife, who's had to witness me go through these depression battles, where I don't want to get up in the morning, where I struggle to leave the house, where I'll go from extremely happy to extremely upset. She's had to witness it for many years. So we started using the term manufactured energy. And simply all that really means is you might see this lively, excited, positive person. What you don't realize behind the scenes is how much I have to manufacture all of that. I have to make it happen every single day. I have to be aware of the situation constantly and put in that work to provide the energy I need to get through the day. And then by the end of the day, I'm completely exhausted. So I started writing it just a couple years ago, and it was from the suggestion of my counselor at the time, to take a little bit of time every day to sort of live with or relive some of the events I witnessed as a kid. And I started doing that. So I love quotes. I love music. And what I essentially started to do is just write a quote, and then talk about how it relates to my childhood or an event that I went through, and then discuss steps that I've taken to continue to grow as a human being and achieve as much as I can achieve. But most importantly, try to be a good example for my daughter. I basically did that for about 50 to 60 days straight. And next thing I know, I had about 200 pages written. It's amazing what will happen when you just start writing. Some of the stuff didn't make the book. Some of it did. But what I did after I had the whole writing put together, as I said, I'd love to be able to, I never intended to publish a book. I will tell you that right now. But I basically took everything that I wrote. I sent it over to my sister-in-law, who helped me edit it, because I write the way I'm talking, and that's not the way you want to have a book be written. So she helped edit the book for me. And my goal was to have two copies made, one copy for myself and one copy that I could hand to my daughter so that she could read it one day when she's ready and see some of the things that her father went through to become the person that he is today, and somebody that I still strive to be the best I can be. But when my sister-in-law read it, she suggested trying to publish it because she thought it might be able to help somebody. And it took me about a year to accept that, because, and I'm starting to get emotional even talking about it now. It wasn't the fact that I didn't want people to see the story or that I'm embarrassed by it by any means at all. It's more along the lines that I still struggle to realize that telling our story can help so many people. And I say that on purpose because I feel as though everybody on the call has their own story. You all have your own struggles. You all have your own battles that you faced. You've all had certain life situations that you faced and gone through. And if you're not willing to talk about it and share it, others will never learn and grow with you. So that's when I said, okay, well, let's publish it, and hopefully we can help one or two people along the way. So that's really where that came from. I'm going to take a sidestep real quick because I do also want to mention the gym and the program that Nicole mentioned. At Bridge Fitness and Nutrition in Pepperell, Massachusetts, we run multiple classes throughout the week. But one of the classes that we run, we call Community Fitness, and we do it through a program called the Phoenix. It's essentially a class that we run. It's a fitness class that I coach, and some of my other coaches volunteer to coach. And we work with anybody that has 48 hours of sobriety or has 48 hours of sobriety and supports anybody in recovery. And we do that with the hopes that men and women can find a place where they feel comfortable. They feel accepted. They know they're not going to be judged, and we can have a great fitness class together and all help each other grow. And I can tell you right now, it's run through the Phoenix. So I would encourage everybody on the call to look up the Phoenix's website as well. It's just that, it's thephoenix.org. We run the community fitness classes at our gym, bridgefitpepperell.org. And we run the classes on Saturdays at 10 o'clock in the morning. But I can tell you with all honesty that I know I've gained more from running those classes than anyone that's come in to take the class. The support that we all give each other, the growth that we've had, the feeling of purpose and involvement is something that I am so fortunate for. And what you'll see when you go to thephoenix.org is they actually have classes at other gyms across the country. I know there's some in Lowell, there's some in Andover, Mass, there's some in Boston, and many other locations as well. But it's just a phenomenal organization. I invite you all to check out. So I touched a little bit about my backstory. I'm going to go a little bit deeper now, though, into how I started to work through some of the challenges that I faced. And just to recap that, it's I struggle with depression every day. I struggle with anxiety, and I certainly struggle with PTSD as well. I was in the military, and what's ironic about that is when I tell people I'm in the military, they'll kind of shake their head and they'll say, oh yeah, okay, PTSD. You don't have to have been in the military or a police officer or a firefighter to face PTSD. I actually believe that the years I was in the Army were the best years of my life for mental stability and life stability. It was my years as in my youth and some of the traumatic events that I faced as a kid that still come back from time to time that I face every day. So if you're facing any of those challenges, it took me a long time I almost felt shame around some of these things. I felt that there must be something wrong with me, that I can't just get over these things. I'm not the biggest guy. I'm only 5'9". But I have tattoos. I'm bald. I lift weights. So people just assume this certain type of person. And it was challenging to start talking about some of the fears and the fact that I struggle with depression. It was very hard. It wasn't accepted for the longest time. I was worried I'd be judged. So I kept everything in for many, many years. All that did for me growing up for a long time was it pushed everything down. I didn't talk about it. I dealt with and still deal with self-sabotage, because as things come up, I just assumed that the world was a bad place. And when things were really good, I need to do something to screw it up, because I want to be in control of that. So I would ruin friendships. I would do stupid things, get into fights, what have you, to just remove people from my life. I lost jobs that I had in the past because I would just have, I just assumed I was going to get fired someday because I'm not good enough anyways. And therefore I would act out and then end up getting fired. So I caused a lot of my own pain and grief because I just assumed that these feelings I had inside were real. And I was never going to accomplish anything. So it took a long time for me to start talking about it. And when I mentioned much earlier in the conversation how I've been in counseling since the age of 3 or 4 years old, I don't think I really put any effort into it until the year my daughter was born. So I would talk, and I was a pretty smart kid. I would go and I would say what I felt like the counselor needed to hear so that I could leave the room. And the other side of it too was I never wanted to get my mom in trouble. When I was real young, she would say to my sisters and I, when she would go to rehab or she went to jail multiple times, when it came down to who we were going to live with and we had a decision to make, she would tell us all the time that she was going to hurt herself if we told the police what was really happening, or if we talked to the courts about what was really happening. And I didn't want my mom ever to hurt herself. I didn't want ever to be the reason for that. So I kind of just kept it all in for many, many years. I never told a counselor what was going on. Whenever my stepfathers beat me or worse, I never let my father know what was happening. I never told anybody in my family what was happening. For the last couple of years that I lived at home, I ended up moving out when I was a sophomore in high school. There was a family in Townsend, Massachusetts that was willing to let me live with them. My best friend, my brother, essentially is what I call him now. And the family took me in. But for a couple of years prior to that, at the age of 12, 13, 14 years old, I would not go visit my father on the weekends. He was supposed to come pick me up, and I would call him and say, "Dad, I'm not feeling good," or "Dad, I really don't want to see you." When in reality, it was because I had a black eye or a broken nose or broken bones, or worse, my mom hadn't come home for a couple of weeks and she was still nowhere to be found. I didn't want him to know any of that. I hid all of it. It was I just didn't want her to get in trouble for a long time. It wasn't until a police officer in Pepperell one day, my mom was gone for about a month, and she came home one night. She broke into our own house, and she was in real rough shape and passed out on the ground. And I called the police, and he showed up at our house, and he looked at me and he said, "Hey, so we've done this multiple times over the past few years." And excuse me for a moment, just it comes right back when I talk about it. But he looked at me and he said, "How long are you going to do this? I know there's something inside of you that you know this is wrong. And I know that you can be more than this. And I'm here for you. You just have to give me the okay and tell me it's time that we're going to have a change in your life." And I am forever grateful for that man who passed away, unfortunately, last year, that he took that moment. It was Officer Greathead in Pepperell, Massachusetts. But I'm forever grateful that he took that time to say those words to me, because that changed my life forever. It gave me the strength to say, this isn't right. This is something that needs to be changed. And that's when my life sort of began for me. So So that's essentially, I talked a little bit about it, but that's essentially what the book details. It talks about multiple situations I went through as a kid, ways that I have worked hard to overcome them. And I try to give as many suggestions that I possibly can to help anybody who's dealing with or suffering from it. And I'm going to jump into some of those things that I do and I've done and I still do to this day. But before I do that, I need to make sure I talk about what really helped me the most over the last few years. I mentioned how I started being honest with my counselor when my daughter was born. And that was the year that my father was killed in a car accident, ironically. But I started talking with him and he had me start doing a few things to try to face some of the traumatic events that I went through. But what helped my healing process the most and continues to help me to this day was a few years ago when I finally started to say to myself, man, what was it like for my mother? What was it like for her to struggle with, excuse me, but for her to struggle with every single day, her own addiction and her own demons? Because I can tell you, and I go back to my childhood now and I think about it as often as I can, but she was a beautiful human being. She was an amazing cook. She was extremely funny. She tried her best to play sports with me, and that didn't always go that well, but she tried. She was someone that all my friends loved hanging around when she was sober. And she was just such an amazing, smart human being. But she struggled with that shame of feeling as though she couldn't be a good mother. It started early on, and she faced certain demons where, for whatever reason, she never felt good enough, which couldn't be more wrong, but she couldn't see it. She never realized how amazing of a woman that she was. Excuse me. She never realized how much she could give to this world. And unfortunately, the demons and the shame that she felt every single day, I believe, is what led her to her addiction and continued to bring her back to it. And I go back to those moments all the time because I try my best to put myself in her shoes. And the pain that brings me can't even come close to what she felt every day. And it's a pain far worse than I feel any day. And that's why I try to do as much as I can now, including that recovery program that we offer at the gym. Because if things like that existed for her, and if people would treat her like a human being, instead of constantly judging and putting her down, she'd still be with us to this day. And I believe she would have been able to battle and fight through. And it wasn't until then, and that was about 6 years ago now, that I really started to work on my own mental health and find ways to battle through and fight through the depression that I face still to this day. That's when it started to change, because from the age of 15, when I moved out, until I was about 35, I was angry. I was angry. How could this happen? How could she do this? I'm constantly pointing and placing the blame on her, much like everybody did every single day to her for a very, very, very long time. So that's how I started to work through it and recover from this. That's what drives me now to work with anybody in recovery. We all face our own demons. We go to different things that help us get through the recovery. We all have our own addictions that we face, and anybody that doesn't admit that is just unfortunately not looking at themselves in the mirror yet. Mine just typically ends up being tiramisu or snacks or ice cream or what have you, or not working out and not taking care of myself, so that's it. I will tell you that I mentioned a lot of this in the book. And let me jump to some of the things that I've done that have helped me throughout the years. And maybe this helps you, maybe not. I hope it does. But it all kind of started for me. It started with my why. When my daughter's heartbeat could be heard in the hospital is when everything I needed came to light. It gave me purpose. It gave me a reason. And I said, you know what, this this child, we didn't know if it was a boy or girl yet. I said, but this child is going to have someone that she can rely on, that she knows and she will never doubt loves her, and will try his best to lead by example for the rest of his life. And I still tell her that to this day. She's 17 years old. She'll be 18 in July. I joke with her and tell her that I want to help her celebrate her 99th birthday, which would mean I'd have to be 121 years old. So for me to do that, I really have to focus on my own personal nutrition and fitness and try to live as long as I possibly can. But that all starts with my own mental health. So that's my why. That's my why every single day, and I enjoy it. So you need to find a why. The other side of it, I think that's been extremely critical to me every single day is paying attention to certain things. So I call it the storm. Lori and I, my wife, talk about it all the time. I do a better job of recognizing when the anxiety and depression is coming. More than I used to be able to recognize it. There's signs to it. I'll start to feel tired. Sometimes I feel a little sick, almost like the flu's coming on, but that's not what it ends up being. I'll lose desire to coach a couple classes at the gym, or I will. This is rare, but I'll not look forward to a financial planning meeting that I have coming up, and I'll say, that's something seems off with that. Because I truly am driven by the success of others. It lights my fire inside. It brings me more joy than my own personal achievements. So when I'm not looking forward to those things, I know something is off, and I'll turn to her and I'll say, hey, a storm's coming. I don't know when, I don't know how bad it's going to be, but just know it's coming. And I do that to make sure she gets a heads up that I might be off for the next couple of days. So I guess first and foremost is to recognize it's coming. And then it comes down to managing it. This is where it comes down to having as many tools in your tool belt as you possibly can have. For me, it could be a bunch of things. And the reason I say having as many tools in your tool belt as possible, what I mean by that is not one of these things works all of the time, which is what I alluded to in the beginning of the conversation, where I'm not going to come to you today and here's one or two things you can do and everything's going to be greater or going to be better. I have to try different things, and maybe one works, maybe one doesn't, but I move on to the next one. And here's a couple of them. So music matters to me. I have to pay very close attention to the music that I'm listening to the words in the songs, and it can completely change my mood. Certain songs will come on and I'll immediately feel that storm come, and it's like darkness all around me. It comes from songs that I enjoy as well. Songs that remind me in a negative way, maybe of my mother or events I witnessed as a kid. Songs that will specifically talk about depression and how sad the world is. Those are things I need to avoid as much as possible. And unfortunately, there are songs that a lot of the songs I loved listening to growing up, I just can't listen to anymore. But it works on the other side too. I have a playlist that I have on my phone. It's just called Happy. And when the storm is on its way, when I'm in the shower or when I'm on my way to work or whatever, I'll just play the Happy playlist, and it gets me moving. And that'll help me quite a bit. Gets me moving is the next piece. Anybody who comes to my gym or anybody who knows me, if you're on the call, you're not going to be surprised when I say this, but I'm that weird, goofy guy that dances around all the time. So I'll be coaching a class and I'll just start dancing. And typically I'm doing it because I know I need to start moving and get myself actively moving to help create a better mood for myself. So that's another area that helps me manage it. I try to avoid social media as much as I can. I try to avoid the news as much as I can. And my father-in-law used to give me crap for that all the time. How can you know what's going on in the world if you never watch the news? I believe the world is 90% good, 90% great things, but the news will only give you the 10%. So that's just my opinion, but I have to avoid the news. I have to avoid there's not much. Most of the TV that I watch are sporting events or cooking shows. And I'm okay with that. So I avoid anything like that. I pay very close attention to who I have in my life. And and how I feel while I'm around them, but more importantly, how I feel after they leave or after I finish talking with them. And these are things, literally, I'm not joking. I take notes after, and I've had to keep track of over the years. And that's nothing against any of the people that have come in my life or have left my life. It's just, I understand how it makes me feel, and I need to try to avoid things. So I call them energy vampires or time burglars, energy vampires and time burglars. Anybody who is coming into my life that is unfortunately causing me to feel negative about myself, negative emotions, or I let in too close and it's negatively impacting me, I have to make this very difficult decision from time to time on if I need can allow them in my life anymore. And I know that sounds harsh, but it's reality. And I know that unfortunately, if those same people bring me down, I'm probably bringing them down as well. So it's not healthy for the relationships. So I have to be very, very aware of that. The other side of it too is I try to get very narrow with my focus when things feel most anxious to me. When I have a lot of things going on, I tend to add more and more to my plate. And I think it's because when I was a kid, the only thing I knew was chaos. And if there was no chaos, it probably meant something really bad's about to happen. That's pretty much all I witnessed as a kid. And that has come into my life a lot in my 30s, where I would just add more and more and more on my plate. And unfortunately, that made it harder and harder and harder to deal with. So I've tried over the last couple years specifically to get very narrow with my focus, set smaller goals. The more anxious I feel, the shorter the time frame. I've gone as far as 5-year planning to 1-year planning to here's the next 90 days to the way it was even last month when I was having a hard time with the holidays. I got to daily focus. It came down to my goal today is to get up, brush my teeth, and take a shower. That was it. And if I could check those things off, I got out of bed, good, that's a win. I brushed my teeth, that's a win. I took a shower, that's a win. I would put a W on my calendar that day. And then I would look back a couple weeks in and say, how many W's do I have in a row? And as silly as that sounds, it helped me feel good about accomplishing something. It gave me some small wins. And that built momentum for me. And that's something I continue to focus on. So that's something I would encourage anybody to do. Set the goals as long as you want. But if they're not bringing you joy and helping keep you move forward, get smaller and smaller with it. Any accomplishment matters, especially when you're in the thick of depression. At least I know personally for me, there are days when get out of bed was the only thing on that list. And I was very proud when I was able to put a check mark next to it. A couple other things that I'll touch on, and then I'm happy to open it up to questions that have helped. Things that have helped me is my own personal growth and development. When I started reading books, and not just motivational up in the sky books, I mean things that are educating me. I love financial planning. I love working with people. So I have 20 to 30 books that just talk about financial planning and the economy. Those are things that interest me. 90% of the country will tell you those are the most boring books on the planet. I get it. But I like them. And when they're helping stimulate my mind, it's helped me continue to move forward. Other motivational books where I can learn, fitness is something that I'm passionate about. Ways of improving your own mental health are things I focus on as well. Obviously, I like to write. So the more I'm journaling, the more I'm writing, typically the better it is for me. And that there were days where in those 50 to 60 days when I was writing the book, where it was, I said I was going to dedicate 30 minutes to writing. Some days I went the full 30 minutes and I wanted to keep going. Other days it was like pulling teeth. I might have gotten 1 or 2 sentences, but I committed to doing that, writing that day. So I would put a check mark next to it as a win. And that's why that mattered. Sticking to the habits, sticking to the rituals that you have on a daily basis were very, very important to me, and they still remain important to me today. And the last two I'll leave you with. The first one is know who you can trust. There are people in your life that are close with you that may have a hard time telling you like it is because they love you and they don't want to hurt your feelings. And that's great, but you need to have people you can trust in your life that will tell you how it really is and not judge you for it. And that can be difficult. Your circle might get a lot smaller. But I can tell you it's extremely important that you have the right people in your circle and that you're providing the right things for those people too. So know who you can trust and who you can lean on. And then the last thing I'll leave you with, and then I'll open up to questions are, and I still do this every day, is having daily gratitude and thank yous. And what I mean by that is I go into every day knowing that tonight when I go to bed, I'm going to lay there quietly and to myself, I'm going to tell myself 3 things that I saw, witnessed, or went through during the day that I'm grateful for. Some days those are literally just, I had a nice cup of coffee. That's one of them. I gave my daughter a hug. It wasn't snowing. those can be some of what they are sometimes. Other times they're much more deeper, meaningful things, but it doesn't matter. There's going to be 3 things every day. And what that makes me do throughout the day is look for some of what those things might be, and therefore opens my eyes to positivity, not negativity. And the thank yous are literally just that. Call it corny, call it whatever you want to. But as I fall asleep, the last thing I try to say to myself, or even out loud at times, is thank you so much for the fact I got another day with people I care about and had a great day, no matter what the day was. Thank you. And then when I wake up the next morning, the first thing I try to do after I hit my alarm snooze, because that happens from time to time, is thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to wake up today so that I can at least see my daughter and loved ones one more time. I don't know what the rest of the day is going to look like, but that's how I start every single day. So going to bed with gratitude, going to bed saying thank you, and waking up every morning saying thank you are things that have always helped me. And when times get really, really tough, I lean on these lists, and I have pages and pages of lists, and it's development. It's something I've had to truly commit to improving. And it wasn't until I committed to it that I really started to see it make a major difference in my life and help me be a better father, I hope, a better friend, a better husband, and just happier in general. So I'll stop there. I appreciate so much time. I know I rambled a bit and I went all over the place. I hope this was helpful, but Nicole, I'm happy to answer any questions and stay as long as you'd like.
Sure. I just wanted to thank you one more time. I know that at the beginning of this, you said that you're not a motivational speaker, but I have to tell you that every time I've listened to you or talked to you, I have left feeling much better than I did when it started. The first day when I met you at the gym, I thought about our conversation for the entire rest of the day. Wow. And I think that you have such a special message, and you have such a special way of delivering it that really can help so many different people. And I'm really grateful that you came today. I'm so glad that you have been able to share your story here.